All right, welcome to the Teaching a Rockstar podcast. And on today's episode, we got my new bestie for the resty, MikeArone. He's up in Boston. This guy owns the Boston Scally Company. Now, we are going to get into why he's on and how I found this cat in just a minute when he comes on the conversation. But he is the perfect example of what I'm constantly talking to teachers about, and that is, man, no longer is this a world and an economy and a society in which, we send kids to college and they get a degree and they go work for a company for 48 years until they retire. This is a whole different world, and he is a perfect example of someone who truly has a passion for something. He's doing something really unique, and it's true to his heritage and where he's from and his family, and it seems like he's got the whole family along for the ride and his community, and it's a great story we're going to get into. Here we go, Teaching a Rockstar podcast with MikeArone, the Boston Scally Company. Let's do this. All right, dude, I'm going to tell you a story. You ready for story time?
Let's do it.
All right, man. So check this out. So a couple years ago, I'm in a coffee shop here in Houston, like a cool one, not like a Starbucks, but I'm certainly not cool enough to be in the particular one I'm in, but I'm in there taking up space, and the dude behind the bar, the coffee barista, whatever you call him, he's like one of those dudes with the long beard, and he's got the groomed hair, the whole bit. You know that guy, and he's got this cap on. And as soon as I see this cap, I start thinking about my childhood. Now, I live in Houston, Texas now, but I grew up in New Jersey. And I start thinking, I see that freaking hat, and I remember at Nardi's Deli, the guy that would make hoagies. He was this older dude. He always wore the undershirt, real tight. He had like big muscle arms and everything, and he had this crazy over-the-top attitude, and he had that cap on. And like you would come in, he'd make fun of your mom, and he was like a national treasure, man. This dude was amazing. And then another dude, the butcher in our little town we lived in New Jersey, in South Jersey, he had the same hat, and I see this dude wearing this cap. Behind I'm like, oh my, like my whole childhood comes to me, right? And I'm like, dude, where did you get that? And he doesn't. He said he got it as a gift. So I'm in the coffee shop. I'm Googling. I'm on the Amazon. I start buying hats. I'm telling you, brother, I probably spent $200 buying caps, and every one of them sucked, like all of them. And I mean, first of all, I don't know what size head these people have. They're making it don't fit my noggin, and they're all twisted and they're bent. And I don't even know, man. I probably have 12, and then what, a year and a half, 2 years later, I'm like last week, finally on my Facebook comes up your ad, and I see that, I'm like, holy shit, that's the hat. That's the cap right there. And then it took me a few days to figure out which one, because they're all badass and I can't decide. And then I get it in the mail, and these things are ridiculous, dude. They're perfect.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's funny because we hear a lot of stories like that where it's like, growing up, they love these kind of caps, but they could never find the one that actually fit them how they wanted it to fit, right? And that was my story as a kid. So growing up, I would steal my dad's, right? And he had the old school floppy ones. They look like pancakes on your freaking head.
Yeah.
And, and I love these. And I love these because they were his, right? And it meant something. So it meant something to me. And as I got older, I would buy some of the other brands that are out there. And what I found that I was doing to get the fit that I wanted, I used to actually take a safety pin and snip it in the back of the hat so that it would pull a little bit tighter, feel a little bit more snug on my head, be a little bit more form-fitted. And it wasn't until years later I'm like, dude, why don't I just design my own, And the thing is scally caps are such a huge part of the Boston culture, right? Yeah. And that's why we're the only ones that actually call them a scally cap. Most people call them, maybe you call them a flat cap or an Ivy cap or a Gatsby cap.
Newsboy or something like that.
Exactly. So we call them scally caps. And I'm like, why is there no Boston Scally out there? We call them that, but there is no actual official one. So that's kind of when we started it up. And, like you said, we needed to make sure that this focused around, the culture of Boston, right? But I think a lot of people share that culture, right? So it's not just Boston. It's people that grew up that same way, right? Humble beginnings, blue collar, working class. It's about your family. It's about your friends. It's about loyalty. Those are the things that are important to us, right? So when we started a brand, I said, I want to see a brand. I want to start a brand that really focuses on what people care about, right? I don't want to make this about just, sale, sale, purchase, purchase, buy, buy, and it's all about the dollars. I want it to mean something, right? And that was really important. So I'm glad that you pick up on that because that's really what it means.
Dude, it's like being part of an attitude, really.
That's it.
And it's there's some vibe about your brand that you've been able to put together. I mean, the whole look of the site is cool, the marketing is cool, the videos are some of the best I've seen in terms of being consistent with brand. And but it's this thing of like hard work, passion, like this yeah, man, like a little rough around the edges but still full of compassion and loving, and having a little fun and having a big attitude along the way. I mean, the whole thing is the design and what it is, man. It's like brand consistency,
Yeah.
where nothing that comes across deviates from what you guys do.
Right, absolutely, and that's the name of the game because for us, this is real life, right? This is how we live. All the guys in the ads, it's me, it's my meathead friends that I grew up with that I've known since I was 5 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've been all over the place, right? Guys have moved, guys have come back, whatever it is. But I pull us together and we do these video shoots, these photo shoots. One you'll appreciate. It's coming soon. We're doing a cap, and I was actually able to get into my old high school last week. And I had one of my old teachers, one of my old coaches, and we shot it in his room. And I put him in the video, and it meant a lot. And I'm in the old hallways that I hadn't been in since I graduated high school, and it was pretty cool. It was very nostalgic, but I wanted to tie it all back to that. Sure, we could have done it at another school. We could have done it in another classroom. I was like, but I need to make sure we bring this back all the time. It needs to come full circle always.
Man, you know what's interesting about the Boston, the whole crew up there is, and I don't know if this is true, man. I might be totally making this up, but it's just my experience. And here's the difference between those towns in and around outside of Boston is compared to where I grew up in New Jersey. Like where I grew up in South Jersey, the whole goal in life is to get to Florida. Like at some point, you got to move to Florida. But what's interesting about those towns in Boston, it seems like people grow up there and they either stay there, they move away, but they all come back.
Always, man. And I think that I love that you picked up on that. What it is, the communities of Boston, if you ever talk to somebody that grew up within a 30-mile radius of Boston and you ask them where they're from, they'll say Boston, right? It's a little bit different than somewhere else where, there's New York. If you grew up 30 minutes outside of New York City in Westchester County, you don't say you're from New York City, right?
Right.
Where in Boston, you do that because the communities are very tight-knit. They're almost intertwined. But I think it's the way a lot of us grew up. I think because most of us grew up very similar. It was based around family. It was based around sports. It was based around a lot of that, where a lot of this was built into the fabric of who we were. And there's something about it. You pick up on like the rough and tough aspect of it, and I talk about that in the brand. It's a very rugged, sarcastic, witty, ball busting community, but it's it's something where there's so much passion built into it, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that we kind of take pride in.
Here's my I've been up there a few times to visit and grown up there a couple times, and twice I was there to speak and to do teacher conferences. And here's the difference between like a Midwest or even Southern groups is like they're in the South and the middle, they're completely open and ready.
Sure.
But up there, man, they're leaning back in the chair. They got the arms crossed, get like a little suspicious. They're not buying in, right? You got to earn it, man. And I'm sweating and I'm giving all. And by the first break, my first break is typically like an hour and a half, hour 45 in. And there's a couple ladies sitting in the front row. They got the arms crossed, leaning back, just staring at me like expressionless. And then I talk to them at the break, and the first thing this lady says to me, she goes, "Tell me about your mother." I'm like, what? She's good, and like she wants to know, like, and then like we get to know about about my
great.
mom, yeah, and then all of us now we're like best friends and we're hugging each other. It's crazy.
What it is too, and it's different, right? The Northeast as a whole, right? And you being in Jersey has some type of stigma. I think in Boston, I've always said the best way to describe it is I describe down to earth, very transparent, very open, very honest, but also very suspect. They can see right through the bullshit.
Yeah.
You can't get away with anything. And I think that's where a lot of that wit, that sarcasm comes in. If one of my friends is, elaborating on a story or exaggerating something, it's like, we call it out immediately. You can't get away with anything.
Yep.
But at the same time, they'll take you in as one of your own almost immediately.
Yeah.
Everybody's literally like family there.
I remember, I can't remember which one of those Boston dudes, it was Matt Damon or the other guy, I can't remember, but they were asking him how they stay so grounded. And he says, because I go back to Boston, and if I say something stupid, my friends will slap me. That's why.
Oh, they don't care.
Yeah. They don't care who you are.
You can never get away from it. It's like no matter how big you get, how much money you make, whatever it is, you're always that kid from Boston to everybody else, which is the best part about it. It's like you go back and you immediately go back to, whether it's childhood or how you were kind of brought up. I think that's why we stay so grounded to it, and that's why I always feel so close to it.
Yeah. All right. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to say about it, and then I'm moving on. Check this out. This is my other cool takeaway from being up there is up there, man. Like in most parts of the country, there's like this hierarchy, like a totem pole of this guy's in finance, and this guy's a doctor, and this guy, is a plumber. This guy, I mean, in other places, there's like this vertical totem pole of professions. But what I realize, a lot of places up there it doesn't matter, man. You could be the mayor, or you could ride the back of the garbage truck, or your teacher, or the attorney. It doesn't matter. Like, we're all on the same level playing field.
That's it, man. Absolutely. Are you from Boston, dude? Jesus. You got it down, man.
No, I've just observed, man. I love watching
That's
people,
it.
man. And all right, man, let's get it. Here's a cool thing. So, dude, you have this idea, and you're sitting. Here's what I love. You're one of those rare people that actually get up and do something. Like I always say, everybody has great ideas, but very few people actually get up and make it happen. So when you came up with this idea, what was the first step? Was it like a phone call? Were you sketching out designs? Were you researching on Google who's making hats and how do I get a design in there?
Yeah, that's part of it, right? But the biggest thing I think was the idea was just the fit, right? And, I grew up wearing these caps, like I was saying, and I used to pin them back. So I drew up sketches and kind of design these how I wanted to see them, and then kind of just looked, what else was out there. And then I decided after wearing my own prototype and people asking me where I got it, I'm like, let's rock and roll, man. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And I've never been afraid to put myself out there. I think, again, that goes back to the way I grew up. And I always say, I grew up, and you probably hear this a lot, I grew up, immigrant mentality, right? My mother came over here when she was 22 years old from Italy. And, literally grew up on a farm and no money. You talk about poor here and poor there. I mean, poor there is, you talk about running water, non-existent, right? So when you come over here and all of a sudden you have a shower that can run daily, that was a luxury to her. So we kind of grew up under a household like that where it was me, it was my two older brothers, and my father was a type A maniac. He was a school teacher in the system for 35 years.
Yeah.
So I grew up under an educator, man.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of inspired me to, always kind of find what made me tick, right? What makes you tick, go out there and do it. But whatever you do, don't ever be afraid to put yourself out there. So I think that was a big part of this for me, was saying, hey, I'm not afraid to go do this. Let's rock and roll. Whether it fails or whether it does well, I'm going to go for it all out.
Yeah, man. It's that personality that, for some people, it's so painful to take a risk. But for me, man, like it's way more painful to experience regret.
100%.
I'd much rather take a risk and fail. And I think that's one of the things we, in school, we kind of brainwash out of kids, because in school, man, it's all about don't mess up, don't make a mistake, rather than, hell, I don't know, go take a risk and see what happens. And failing in your world and my world is a great thing, because we're one step closer, and and now we know what doesn't work or what we need to work on. But in school, failing is it's a life-changing, horrific event.
I'm glad that you bring that up, and it makes me happy what you do and how you do it as an educator, and I can appreciate that and respect that. Like I said, I saw my father do that for many years, and I've always been a big believer in fail often, fail fast. Don't be afraid to try things, right? Don't try to do things right the first time, right? I think there's a time and a place to do things right the first time, but I think in most instances, I think kids need to learn how to fail. I think they need to know that it's a good thing to fail, because you learn from failure, right? You learn that from there there's only up, or you learn what you did wrong. Now you know what you got to go and do right. So I think you can execute more efficiently if you fail and fail fast.
Yeah, man. And like, here it is, man. Also having a great teacher, or even as you move on, man, having a great mentor in your life where they can help you find the distinction between persistence, grit, that whole side of it, and then failing fast. Because a lot of times, I find schools, I'll use a school example, but also the same for people. I find schools where things aren't working, so they do more of it and do harder and they do it louder and they keep, and hey man, it doesn't work. It's still zero. You do it 10 times as much, it's still going to be zero. Where there's that side of it where get out, do something different rather than the same thing, more of it. But then I think that's the key to having a great teacher and a great mentor where they can help you find that distinction between, yeah, man, you were persistent, you didn't give up, that's awesome, and it still doesn't work. Let's move on.
I agree with you, and I think the key word there is mentor, right? And that's one thing I always say is I think everybody needs a mentor, and it doesn't have to be one. I know I had coaches in sports that are mentors. Until this day, I still talk to them. I have teachers that are mentors. I have people through past jobs and occupations that have been mentors to me that I still reach out to get advice and to gain knowledge from. And you bring up school and how they'll say let's do it harder. Let's if it's not working the first time around. I think for me, and I talk to my father about this often as a kid, that school wasn't for me. I wasn't dumb. I was a pretty bright kid. I did well, but I was very bored.
Yeah.
And I found that, the teachers that challenged me in a different way, that understood, hey, this kid learns a different way, right? I had ADD pretty bad. And they learn how to channel that. And they learn that, there are things that this kid likes to do creatively where he excels. And the teachers that were able to do that, I did exceptionally well in marketing classes, business-oriented classes, things that I was interested in. I was able to dive into and go all out in, opposed to where I had to sit and memorize a math equation or a topic in history. I had a tough time, man, and I got bored very, very easily.
Yeah, man. Here's what I always say: like those kids that are really great at school, and which means oftentimes what that means is they're visual and they can concentrate on one little thing for a long time, and they can memorize it temporarily so they can get it back
Sure.
and answer the test on Friday. For that kid, those make great. Oftentimes, they make great employees. Well, we need some great employers.
Yeah.
And man, like that's a whole different personality. And I try to help teachers see when they complain about a kid, I say, wait a minute, let's make a distinction. All those qualities you just described to me are amazing qualities to have in an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And for a while there, I was in this group called EO. It's an entrepreneurs group, and we would hang out. There'd be 100 men and women in there. You talk about a bunch of animals. Like these are not these are not school based people,
Yeah.
but they have those qualities, and they all have a story about
Yeah.
somebody. So about a teacher trying to felt like they're being stifled of that quality of whether just being curious and questioning and wanting to have an intake of a ton of different information rather than just one streamlined topic. It's fascinating, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to when I was in high school, and I remember selling T-shirts out of the back of my car, and I remember getting in trouble for it at the time. And I remember thinking I walked away with $300 in net profit, and I'm doing the math, and I'm like, man, I'm on my way. And I remember getting in trouble at school for it, and I think back to that pretty often. And I think that's something that they should have encouraged then. And I feel like schools are doing that now. I really do. I think education in the curriculum is changing in a way where they're supporting things like that and supporting entrepreneurship. And I think that's why by the time I got to college, I did a lot better in school because I was able to focus on topics that intrigued me or that supported the way that I thought or things that I actually wanted to do.
Yeah, I think what it is, man. You're right, dude. Schools are changing, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And I think a lot has to do with social media, where now
Sure.
educators can finally share what's going on and what's working, what's doing great in schools around the country. And in addition to that, there's like real life evidence. Like back then, when we were in high school, there wasn't a lot of evidence that this would work, but now people can see thousands of kids online that hey man, this kid really is doing a great job playing video games. And this YouTuber kid, who talks about, it's just unbelievable what, possibility that are out there. And what I'm wondering, man, when you were in school, because you had a dad who was an educator, he sounds like he wasn't exactly that traditional educator. He's
No.
more open-minded, and is that right?
That's right, man. So my dad got the and he taught in a different school system, a town over from me, where we grew up. But yeah, my dad would like to say he got all the quote unquote the problem kids, the
Yeah.
kids that got in trouble, and he knew how to deal with them because you know what, he came from the same place, and he related with these kids. So he's able to bring these kids in that maybe they weren't up to the, same education level as the others, but I think my father found in them that they actually were, but they learned a different way. And he was able to get through to them. And I think the biggest thing was they respected him so much that they wanted to do well for him. So he was able to break through, and he taught every kid differently, and he was able to maybe bring something out of them that other teachers couldn't, or maybe the system couldn't do. So he specialized in that. He was English and reading, but over time we found that they would pass most of those kids in his classroom, and he would do amazing things with them.
Yeah. Give him to that guy. He can handle him.
That's it, man.
That guy with the cap. Put him in his class.
They loved it, man. He was a badass dude. He didn't take shit, but at the same time, they loved him.
Yeah.
They loved him, and there was students coming over the house, Thanksgiving, pumpkin picking, everything. I mean, we knew all the kids in my dad's class growing up. He opened the door to them like family, and it was one of those things where it was just such a mutual respect that nobody ever gave him a hard time because I think they had that relationship.
That's what it's all about, brother. For those, here's the truth, man. For those kids who do really well in school, they already have that relationship at home and with their friends
Sure.
and in their scouts and in their church and all that stuff. But for a lot of those most challenging personalities in school, it's all about creating that relationship with those kids. I always tell people, man, it's super easy to skip a class. That's easy. It's easy to quit school. But man, it is incredibly difficult to quit a relationship, to
Yeah.
skip a relationship. Man, you just can't do that. And thank God those kids had your pops, man.
I love that, man. That's a great perspective. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, like it. Like I guarantee your dad had kids that would skip every class except for his, for sure. Like I know that
Oh,
happened.
absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
And so when you're coming, like you were in high school and you're doing your thing and you're just getting by, just like tell me what I got to get out of here. All right,
Yeah. So for me, man, it was like I said, I was really bored. I didn't love school. I gotta be completely honest. I mean, for me, it felt like I remember even as a little kid when I started, when I was in kindergarten and going through elementary school, and I remember I knew what was happening. I knew that, man, I got a lot of years left of this. I got this many hours in the day, and
Yeah.
I was staring at the clock. By the time I got to high school, obviously a big part of my life is my friends and in sports. So those things kept me intrigued. But yeah, man, I remember just kind of being in school and saying, I want to get through, and I didn't want to let my parents down, so I did try really hard, and I did okay, and I went to college. Luckily I wrestled in high school, and I was able to get some scholarship going into college, and I think I grew up a little bit by the time I got to college. I really matured, and I wound up doing, I did 10 times better in college than I did in high school because I think I really saw the benefit of education, and what the greater goal was beyond that.
What did you wrestle? What way in high school?
So I was in high school, right?
Yeah.
I was 112 for 2 years. The weight
Mhm.
classes have changed now, but I was 112 for 2 years. I was 119, then I was 125. In college, my first 3 years, I was 125, and then I was 133 my senior year. And I was cutting from my last 2 years of college. I was cutting from about 160 pounds. It was a brutal cut, and it's tough, man.
Yeah, man, you burned some brain cells along that cut for
Oh,
sure.
dude, I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah, we wrestling just now got big. I wrestled in New Jersey and then moved to
Yep.
Texas, and I was trying to explain wrestling, like, what you do what with another boy, and so they weren't down with any of that. But finally, it's starting to grow down here, and
Yeah.
I try to tell parents, man, it is the most like you want to build some character. It is the most humbling sport on the planet, and one you'll think about for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
But getting pinned by another kid the same way, there's no ball, there's no team, there's nobody to blame it on but you. It changes who you are.
You're 100% right. And so let's put this in perspective, right? I started wrestling, I was about 8 years old. And I remember my first match. I got my ass kicked.
Yep.
I lost 13-2. I got smoked. And at that very moment in my life, at 8 years old, I learned accountability. And I have friends that are in their 30s now that still don't know what accountability means. I know people that, they do something and they want to blame everybody else. At 8 years old, I realized that second on the mat, I couldn't blame a damn person. It
Right.
was my fault that I lost. Maybe I needed to work harder. I needed to learn more. I needed to gain some knowledge. And it gave me a stretch goal of, okay, here's where I am now. I got to fill it in with hard work and knowledge, and here's where I can get to later on. So for me, I found that to be the most important trait that till this day, I tell people all the time, I'm like, it's relationships and accountability. I think those are one of the two most important things in anything you can possibly do.
Yeah. I think I don't know about every wrestler, but most of the wrestlers I know, for me, it was sixth grade. And the first match, I can hear the coach of the other kid yelling at the kid, let him up, take him down again. We're going to practice with this guy. And oh my God. So the kid would let me up just to take me down again. And there's
Yeah, man.
nothing there's no way. And just feeling at that age what it's like to be manhandled. Like there's nothing you can do about it because you don't have the skills yet. You don't have the strength. You don't have the stamina, the cardio, the skill, nothing. And it does put life into perspective, man. And here's what I say, especially for, I'm sure, I don't know if it's politically correct, but I just know this is true for boys and young men and even older men that you need something in your life. You need some sort of physical struggle. Like that's part of the DNA. And even like when I find men, I mean, like in those entrepreneurs, super successful dudes professionally, but there's something in their life missing. It's because they don't have the physical. They don't train heavy in the gym. They don't even know where the gym is. They don't go. They don't sweat. They don't get out of breath. They don't have that feeling in your stomach on leg day when you're really questioning, should I be doing this? Is this even
Yeah.
healthy? Am I going to die? Like there has to be something in your life like that to feel complete.
I agree with you, and I think that's why wrestling was such a big aspect of my life, and I owe a lot to that sport. And I think back to, I grew up and I did manual labor through high school, through college. I did jobs that absolutely sucked, and I remember, at the end of summer, I'd be working construction, and we'd be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be getting home, and I'm like, man, this is not what I want to do. This is very hard, right? But stuck in, I did it, and I look back and I'm like, being able to look back at some of the things that you did and to say that, I have done that, I have been through this shit. You didn't just all of a sudden, go through high school and college, no jobs, and then all of a sudden you're getting your first job out of college. No way. I started work when I was 13 years old. I used to take my bike to Dunkin' Donuts, and that was my first job. I was 13 and a half years old. Didn't even have the papers,
Right.
and I'm taking my bike to work. And then I was working at the gym. I was doing landscaping, always trying to find a way to make a buck. And that was something that my parents always pushed on me. And my two older brothers are also very inspirational for me. I always say my brothers raised me, right? I never wanted to have my brothers look at me and ever be ashamed or disappointed in anything I did. So I saw them working hard, and that meant that I had to do the same thing too. So I think that's why I always think you got to have a mentor, right? And I think sometimes you got to do things where you got to kind of push through and realize on the other end that, hey man, that sucked, but it shaped me into a better person.
Yeah, that's funny. Growing up, those child labor's law don't apply to this family.
Oh, dude, they definitely didn't, man. I don't know. There was a lot of cash going back and forth.
Right. Yeah. And so, man, when you were in high school, outside of your coaches, because here's, with a coach, it's a very different kind of relationship
Yeah.
because there's more time and we can really focus on things that apply directly to life. But man, I truly believe that to be true in any class, where it doesn't matter if it's biology or English or, it doesn't matter, where we can use the content of our classroom to teach the skills that a kid really needs to be successful. And thinking back, man, did you have like a teacher in a content area that still comes to mind in the work that they did with you in that class?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had a lot of teachers that I developed some really good relationships with, especially as I got into high school, that I think kind of understood what kind of student I was, that they knew I was a good kid, and that I tried really hard. And what I found was, like you said, these specific teachers for me were people that I didn't want to let down. I found that that was kind of the common denominator in all of them. It was somebody that, hey, I might not have excelled at a certain subject, right? If I was taking an accounting class. And I think back to one of my accounting classes, my junior year in high school, and that was not my class. But I remember trying really hard in this class and trying to do well because I didn't want to let them down. And I knew that they actually cared about me, not only as a student, but as a person. They didn't want to give me the bad grade, right? They wanted to see me excel, but they also wanted to see me learn the lessons of, hey, you're not so great at this, but what do we got to do to get from point A to point B? What do we got to fill that in with? How does MikeArone tick, compared to the guy next to him in class or the girl next to him in class? And I think the best teachers were able to do that for me.
Yeah, man. You know what? Here's it is. It's so obvious when kids, especially at the secondary level, kids walk in and you can tell immediately that this teacher really, really cares about chemistry, rather than this teacher really, really cares
Yeah.
about his kids, his family in this classroom, that family they create for those kids in that room. And it applies to everything. Man, I just bought a car. Well, I shouldn't say it. My wife just bought a car. We went there, and I guess the sales guy likes cars. I don't know, but he sure loved us, and he loved his customers, and,
Yeah.
how hard he worked for us and the relationship he built. We found out about his mom. We're going to his mom's restaurant tomorrow night for dinner. Like, I mean, and it's all from buying a car.
Isn't that unbelievable what passion does, right? How it kind of changes perspective on everything. The teachers that were, the best teachers were the ones that were most passionate. I think specifically to college, I had one of my professors, Lori Weinstein. Shout out to Lori Weinstein. He was my marketing professor, and this dude was he was a bigwig at Procter and Gamble for a while, and he was touted as, if you were in his class, and I got put in his class not by accident, but just by chance. Didn't put in to have him. I just got him, and everyone's like, "Oh man, you got Lori Weinstein. This dude's really tough. He's passionate. He's such a good dude." But it's probably the hardest class you're going to take. You might want to take a different class if you want to try to get that B, try to get that A. And I remember thinking, I'm like, whatever, man. I'm like, at this point, I'm just going to take it. This guy was so passionate. I remember being in his class and being so intrigued. But marketing was the thing that I loved. It was creativity, and that was something that he noticed in me. And I went through this, and this was the first A plus I ever got in my life. And I'm talking, take gym class aside, first A plus I ever got in my life. I took him 2 more times after that, and I got A pluses in each preceding time that I took this guy, because he was so passionate about it. I respected him. I didn't want to let him down, but he was also actually able to figure out, hey, this is how this dude learns. I see something in him, that he's creative, or he has a passion for this, or he has a skill set in this area. And I think that's kind of how it fell into marketing and entrepreneurship. I think they kind of go hand in hand. And I did really well in the class, and I keep in touch. Well, I haven't actually recently, but I used to keep in touch with him pretty often afterward to kind of gain advice, gain insight. And he was, throughout college, he was kind of like a mentor kind of relationship.
Yeah. Here's the thing about, our, especially content specific teachers, where you're right, man. Like a kid might not be passionate about geometry, and that is fine. But still, what I really want is teachers to be so passionate that that kid thinks, listen, I want to feel the same way about my thing that she feels about geometry. Like I want that in my life.
Yeah, man, you want the teacher that's like, you want that teacher that every kid's screaming that they want to have. And, everybody knows that teacher. It's like that science teacher who's super quirky, but you go in the class and it's just an absolute blast, and they do something so different and so outside the box. that it just, that's the thing that you need. Maybe that's why, it helps students to maybe learn a different way, but I think they get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
I know I did in certain instances like that.
Yeah, man. When you went to college, and I mean, this is before you had the cap idea.
Yeah.
What were you thinking, man? Like what? Because I mean, you're there to wrestle, and you're going to take some classes, and thank goodness we're going to help with tuition because your dad's a teacher, and like, were you thinking about a profession at this point?
Yeah, I knew that I needed a college education to, if I wanted to go out there and work, right? So I think the mentality that I had at that point was I knew I wanted to do something on my own, right? I knew I wanted to start my own thing at some point, some way, some form. Um, but in my mind, I needed college to get there. And my mind was always on sales. So I got in sales immediately out of college. Um, but that was my mindset when I was in college. I was like, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get a job in sales, and I can create my own, I can create my own limit. Sky's the limit. That's a bar I need. And I can kind of be on my own, doing my own thing, and immediately got into sales out of college. And that's right. And that's really where I learned about business as a whole, and how that kind of benefited, went hand in hand with entrepreneurship as well.
What were you selling?
So I started working for WB Mason, which is an office supply company. They're based out of Boston, and I worked for them for 3 years. And then I got a job working medical devices with company Stryker.
Yeah.
And I'm still with Stryker for 10 years. And I absolutely I love it because I love sales. I love people. I love my customers. And it's something where it's been able to benefit what I do, right? I've learned as much about business from Stryker as I've learned about business from Boston Scally. They've kind of benefited each other. And I've always made it to point to, I make sure they don't interfere, but I take the positive of both, and it helps me complement both, being able to look at my sales business from a P&L perspective, right, that I'm looking at Boston Scally stuff on,
Right.
but being able to take my sales relationships and customer-oriented the customer-oriented aspect of it and bring it over to Boston Scally. I think they kind of complement each other.
So, dude, you're still working at Stryker.
Dude, I am burning the midnight oil. I just love it all. I like to take on as much as I can. I got 2 kids. I have one that's only 6 months old. I got a 2.5-month-old. I like to have as much going on as humanly possible.
Yeah.
I leave no time to anything. That's what fuels me. I can't have dead time. I need to be going 100 miles an hour at all aspects of the day.
All right, so how are you running the Boston Scally company? So you have like a team coming in, or you got like a fulfillment center, or what is going on, man?
Yeah, man. Great question. So I have a great partner in this business. So I have my wife used to work for Nestle. She worked for Nestle for about 9 years under the Nespresso umbrella, and she did all their international and domestic marketing. So everything from taking new product concept to launch. So I was able to get her cheap, and I brought her into Boston Scally a few years back. And since bringing her in, it's been able to create that bandwidth to help us set the stage to explode. But as far as warehousing, we have a warehouse that picks, packs, ships. So that's taken care of. So we've been able to build and delegate as much as humanly possible, so that I can be the creative forefront of this and design the hats and do the social media and make cool videos and make sure that I'm focusing on the customers and what they want and what they want to see. So for the future of the brand. But my wife's the backbone of the business. I gotta work in overtime also.
Yeah, man, that's what we do at our family here. So my wife handles all the contracts. She handles the booking. She books gigs and events around the nation and puts the conferences together that we host. And then my job is just to get on stage and, wreck the mic. But you know what I also love, and people always tell me I got to get away. Yeah, quit doing those videos and dude, I love it. Like that creative side of it. I love that part of the deal, man.
That's the best thing, and you need content and frequency, man. That's what's going to keep you relevant, and what's going to supersede everything today is brand and community and culture. Yep. Anybody can put a product out there. Anybody can put a good product out there. Anyone can put a shitty product out there. But if you don't have a brand and a community and a culture behind it or a story
Mm-hmm.
behind it, I mean, I don't think it's going to last long. I mean, I know I've only been doing this with Boston Scally 5 years. So, my goal is to have this going 55, 60 years, forever, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I always bring it back to the family, the loyalty. And, when people ask me about the company, like, your question, it's like, yeah, man, I got family helping me out. I got my wife helping me out. And, my two boys one day are going to hopefully help out if they want to. But at least I can teach them some of the lessons from this, and they can learn from this to go on and, do their own things. But we try to keep family involved as much as humanly possible, kind of helping us out.
Yeah, man, I read a book years ago, right when the beginning of the advent of social media, and this dude named, I want to say his name was David Meerman Scott, and the book it was all based on the concept that there are way more than enough people than you need looking for you. They just can't find you. And like that was true for me, where I was looking for the hat. I didn't know you. I didn't know where the hat was, but I knew it was out there. I just couldn't find it for 2 years until your ad started popping up on my Facebook because I bought in a hat. And by the way, I don't know who's doing your pixel on your Facebook marketing, man.
Following you everywhere.
Lord, dude, that is one powerful pixel.
Oh, they love that, man. I'll make sure that we got a small agency doing some of our back-end marketing now. I did all of it myself for a while so I could learn about it, because I want to make sure I know about everything that I'm doing. Yeah. So anytime I pass anything off or source anything to a freelancer or bring somebody on board, I want to make sure that I'm educated in it too. But our marketing team is kicking some butt.
Everywhere I go.
Yeah, man. You got to make sure you send me this snippet. I'm going to send it over to my buddy Will at Unstoppable. He's going to love it.
I will, man. Yeah. Hey, check this out. So, I'm just curious, what kind of growth have you seen from I think you said 2011, 2012? When did you start this thing?
Yeah, 2012. So we've grown 100% a year since then. So we're shipping out anywhere from 10,000 to 12,000 caps a month now. And it was crazy because when we first started this, I'll never forget, we only had 2 caps, a few different sizes, couple T-shirts. And I'm like, that's it, man. Let's do it. Let's throw the site out there and let's get it going. I don't care. 2 hats, 200 hats. You don't need to wait until you got a full lineup. Let's go.
Right.
So we went rocking and rolling and put a couple Facebook ads out. All of a sudden, it was like 1 sale, 2 sales. All of a sudden, the second month, I was like, at the time, my apartment at that time was stacked to the ceiling with boxes that I was shipping out. And I was like, I need a fulfillment center already. So within the first couple of months, we were profitable, and I was like, "Wow, this is a real thing."
Yeah.
And then we went all in, man, and we kind of pushed it and went crazy with it. But like you said, you make such a good point. It's what's it, 7 billion people in the world now, something like that, right? It's everybody's got a head on their shoulders. That's what I say. Everyone's like, when people are like, well, Scally Caps, it's a kind of a niche market. I'm like, yeah, it sure is. I'm like, but there's also 7 billion people out there, and I'm pretty sure all of them have a head on their shoulders.
Right. And all those dudes, I mean, people are marketing your stuff, even though it's not your hat, like Brad Pitt everywhere he goes, there's a lot of dudes out there marketing your stuff for free, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, and we've gotten some pretty cool clientele rocking the gear, which has been fun, and we're working on some stuff right now with Stephen Farrelly. Stephen Farrelly is Sheamus from the WWE.
Yeah.
We're doing some cool stuff with him right now. And, we've had Donnie Wahlberg wearing our stuff, and we had Gronk wearing some of our stuff, which is really cool. And, so a lot of these guys found it on their own. We didn't even reach out to them. They found it on their own, and all of a sudden someone sent us a pic, and I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. So, I'm thinking some of the ads either found them or found their manager or something.
Yeah. And plus there's just so many people in that culture and that attitude. And just, even in the comic scene, like, the Burr and Rogan and all those guys, like Rogan, that's that's his hat, man. Like that's who his head belongs in that hat.
Yeah, man. And Rogan lived in Mass for a while. He went he went to high school a town over from me. I grew up in Waltham. Joe Rogan went to high school at Newton South in Newton, Massachusetts. But pretty sure I think he was born in Jersey, though. He's originally a Jersey boy and then kind of moved around a bit and then found himself in outside of Boston for a bit. That's where he started stand-up. And
yeah, dude, he's like the Oprah of today for young men.
Yeah, man, he's awesome. Such a down-to-earth dude and great content, well-spoken, funny as hell. I mean, he's got it all, man. He's done a great job at that, and I love listening to Joe Rogan's podcast.
Man, it's just a powerful place where people can learn. Man, just go and freaking do what you love, and then there's a way to make money at that. There's a way to make a career. Whether it's and he has such and like if someone told him take any one of the things that he does and say you're gonna make be successful professionally, and everybody said would no, but he does with everything. It's all such niche, whether it's archery or comedy or commentating, cage fighting. There's such niche things, but because he's so passionate about it, he's gonna figure out a way.
Took the words out of my mouth, man. And it goes back to like you were talking about, teachers, right? You find the teacher that's the most passionate, and those are the ones that are doing the best, right? Those are the ones that seem to be successful in helping students excel. And I think it's the same thing in life too. You find something that you're passionate about, eventually people are going to find you, or you're going to be able to make money doing it. And I know it sounds cliche, and I think this all got put into perspective when I had kids. Was that it's not always about the money, right? Like, what kind of legacy are you going to live? What are you going to leave behind? What are people going to think about you when you're gone? And that's important to me, right? It's how much money you make. People don't care how much money you make. They don't. For me, it's like, do people enjoy being around you? Do they want to hang out with you? Do they want to have a beer with you, right? And I always, when I started this brand, so on the inside of the caps, right, this guy right there, that's me, right? So, but I always tell the story of the guy on the inside of the cap, and one of the things I say is, I'm like, that's a guy you want to have a beer with, right? I always wanted to say, like, the people I want wearing this hat is somebody you could see at a bar, sit down, have a beer with, tell some stories, have a laugh, and and enjoy their company. And I think that's kind of built into the fabric of what we do. And I think that if you can do that and make a living out of it, that's as successful as anything.
All about the happiness. You know what, man? The thing about your business, and this is what I try to tell people all the time, whether it's people that want to speak or teachers that want to do what I do, or what your kids are wanting to launch something, it's like, like when people ask me, like, well, how do I get in and do what you do? And I tell them the same thing: go book a gig.
Yeah,
that's
just
what you
do
do. Go book a gig. Well, I don't have any content. Let me well, go book a gig for 2 months from now. Let me tell you, you're gonna create some content where you got something on the calendar you're about to speak at, and it's the same thing where you got 2 hats. Hey, man, let's launch a site. Let's get some ads out there. You don't have any hats. We'll get some hats. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Like, go make it happen. Like, just get that thing going and then figure it out.
That's it, man. Once you put yourself out there, and it goes back to, fail hard, fail fast, whatever it is, learn from it and move on and make the corrections, right? That's the most important thing. Don't fail and do the same thing twice, right? Fail, fix it, move on. And it's, I like to do things quick. And sometimes my wife gets irritated with me because I want to do things 100 miles an hour. And I'm like, listen, I would rather do it 100 miles an hour, screw up, figure it out, and move on and still be done first than, to kind of sit back and watch on the side and do the what ifs and overanalyze things. I don't like to overanalyze. Just go do it.
Yeah, it's powerful. Hey, man, let me ask you a question. What's next? I mean, you're shipping out freaking 10,000 hats a month. Is ridiculous, and you got your stuff on noggins everywhere. So are you going to increase the product line, or just focus on the same thing? Are you doing some more shirts? Or tell me what you're doing.
So I got to keep innovating, man, and that's the fun part. I love doing this part. So we're innovating, more videos, more promotions, but the heart and soul of the brand is always going to be the hats, right?
Yep.
We are going to expand on the apparel side. We've been wanting to do it for a couple of years, but so many new ideas come out with the hats, and the hats keep making traction. And we need to make sure that we're always coming out with new caps, new gear, keeping everybody intrigued as we continue to move along. So we're going to just continue to come out with hats. We're going to expand the apparel line. We'd love to be able to get into some outerwear. So that way we can have kind of a full lineup. One of the things that we do, though, is, and I'd like to say that this is different, is we ask for genuine feedback from customers, people like yourself. You're wearing these caps, and we actually put it into motion. What do you want to see out there? We don't just design these things and put them out. A lot of times we'll design them. We'll show our customers the prototypes and go, do you like these? And through social media now, you're able to do that. You're able to say, hey, do you like the brown or do you like the black one? And you'll have instant feedback. And 10 hours later, you have 1,000 people that told you yeah. And, you have 4 people that told you no, or whatever it is. And you're able to make a decision based on that. And that's why we say, when we tell people, and I know this sounds cheesy and kind of cliche, but I tell my customers all the time, I'm like, you guys are the brand. And that's actually a fact, because they're designing the caps. I'm putting the concept together, but I need their feedback. If they don't like it, guess what? It's not going out. If they like it, we're going to rock and roll with it. We'll build a campaign around it. We'll do a cool video on it, and we'll let it rock and roll.
Man, here's the thing, man. It's right now, because it's so interesting, because it's just no one's doing it. Like if your product sucks right now, it's because you suck. It's because you didn't ask enough questions or show it to enough. There's no reason for anything to suck, because we have so much opportunity and availability to get feedback. It's crazy, but still, what people are doing, they're trying to hide the product, hide the prototype, and like surprise everybody. I don't want to surprise people with something that sucks, man. I want to surprise people with giving them exactly what they asked for. That's the surprise.
No, and I think what we try to do with the surprise element is, we'll tease things a little bit, but we try to surprise them with the content. We do some cool content that people enjoy watching. I want people to feel like, hey, even if I'm not buying a hat, they can come watch some cool videos or see some cool content or whatever it is. And like you said, with with Facebook, with Instagram, with all these other platforms, TikTok and video platforms, you can find your demographic. There's no excuse now. There's analytics out there that can help you find exactly who you're trying to target and who you're not. And sometimes there's some crossover, and that's a beautiful thing. But it comes down to just putting it out there, and you'll find people that are interested. It doesn't matter what it is. You'll find it and build a brand around it, but it's got to be genuine. That's the biggest thing. It's got to be genuine.
Well, those videos definitely work. I mean, I went and had a beer as soon as I saw you with your brothers having beers, wearing hats. It's like, damn, I got to get down to the petrol station and have a beer. Look at, where's my hat? And here's the other thing about marketing nowadays is what I remember, like 20 years ago, the whole goal was, how can I get my stuff in front of as many people as possible? Because back then you had to get giant volumes of people and eyeballs, because there's going to be a tiny percent actually would buy your stuff. Now it's like we have the technology available and the analytics available where we can specify exactly which eyeballs are looking at your stuff.
Yeah,
And
it's
go ahead.
yeah, I think back in the day it was, and we do a little bit of this now. We don't do as much of it, but we get out there and do festivals, and we do pop-ups, and it's like, you got to get out there and get in front of the customer. Where and we actually do want to get back to doing more of it. I think from a bandwidth perspective, just the site has gotten so busy, direct to the consumer on the website, that we haven't done as many pop-ups and festivals. But we do it merely because I'm like, I want to get in front of the customers, and we go and we bring some cold beers and we hang out with customers, because that to me is probably one of the most important things. We do festivals that we go to every year, and I don't even go to say, oh, we're going to go there and make sales. Like, I go there because I'm like, I can't wait to go see my customers, and I want to do more stuff like that. I want to do events. I want to do food truck festivals, speaking events, or have a music festival based around Boston Scally, and be able to bring a community together, and other brands or other businesses, just to be able to have that aspect of it.
I mean, even that pop-up thing, like that, I know people, it feels like it's local and small, but that's huge. That's a national campaign, because when you see it, like, I feel like I'm a part of that. Like, I'm not there at the festival, but I see the booth, I see the people, and a guy in the background has a giant pretzel, another guy has a beer, and they get the cap on. Like, and I'm in Houston, of all places, and it's 40 degrees hotter and a zillion miles away, but I feel like I'm a part of that scene that's happening there.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. See, that's huge, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. And it's crazy. We were at we do a festival every year. It's probably the biggest one that we do. We do some Irish festivals in Dorchester and all that, but we do one called the St. Anthony's Feast, and it's in the north end of Boston, and it's a very tight knit community, and right in Boston, and it's very it's a very old festival. It's 100 years old this year. It was the centennial year.
Is it a Catholic thing?
Yeah, it is, but they don't push it like crazy like that. Like, when you're there, it's not overly religious. It's more of like a traditional thing for Boston. I mean, you go there, and I think it's between 200,000 and 300,000 people pass through this thing over the course of 3.5 days. And most of the time, our first few years, the people we would talk to that actually knew our brand or had seen us on Facebook or Instagram or just around town, whatever it was. Now, we were there, and there was people from California, from Arizona, and they're like, we know you guys. And there was a guy that came up to our booth from Arizona, and he was wearing a Boston Scally cap, and he goes, I just happened to be passing through this weekend. Didn't know you guys were here. He's like, I love you guys. And he had our hat, and he was all the way
Yeah.
from Arizona. I'm like, man, that is awesome. I was like, that was one of the coolest stories for me. I'm like, it's still kind of surreal to see that, you know?
Yep. I love it, man. When I was growing up, I want to be Catholic so bad because they had these festivals. I mean, the dads were over there drinking beer, and I was like, they're loud. And I was like, man, why can't we be Catholic? And all those kids at school, they went through puberty faster, and then they had those like that Italian horn thing, whatever that thing
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
man, I got to get one of those. Well, I don't even know what that is. And I remember that. Hey, listen, man, let me ask you a last question. Is
Sure.
you got your life happening? You got kids. You got this amazing wife that you recruited from Nestle. You're selling thousands of caps, and you're selling medical devices. How in the hell are you still training? Like, how do you get in the gym? Because it's clear that you're still getting there.
I get up at 5 a.m. every day.
Yeah,
I do not miss a day. I am OCD with my training. That's a big part of my life. So for me, and again, man, this is going to sound cliche and cheesy and like a meathead, such a meathead thing, but it's for me the gym is my meditation, man. I have to be in the gym. I have to work out. I think it helps me to function. For me, it's where I can actually shut my brain off. If that doesn't sound crazy, I can shut my brain off for a bit and focus on something outside of work. And changing diapers and things like that, and I can just I can go in there and hammer the iron and work out and kind of gas myself out for an hour or so, and it makes me feel like a human, that's for sure. So I make sure that I don't miss my workouts. But yeah, 5 a.m., man, it's I feel like, listen, there's everybody's got an hour no matter where it is, right?
yeah,
It's, hey, even if you got to train at 3 a.m. to find that hour, or if you got to train at 9 at night, I look at it like there's no excuse. If you want to work out, you should be able to get in there. It's 1 hour. You can find the hour.
yeah, man. There's my kids go to a high school. They go to the same high school that Beyonce went to, and
Okay.
on the front of the high school for what has a marquee, and one I drove up one day and it said, "You have just as many hours in the you have just as many hours in the day as Beyonce does. Get to work."
Yeah.
And I started thinking about that, and then like in terms of training, who I think about is The Rock. Like that dude is up at 3 in the morning.
That's it. He finds it.
Yeah, like
100%, man. He'll work out at all times of the night. I follow The Rock on Instagram. I love that dude. And it's I think he was on his honeymoon or something. He brought his family on his honeymoon, and he was training in the middle of the night. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this dude's not going to miss a day. He's got too
nah.
much on the line to miss a day working out. And it's like, it's 1 hour. You can find it no matter what. You could be The Rock. You could have a million things going on in a million different directions, and he finds the time to get in there and get it done.
It's important because seriously, dude, I know you don't talk about it in the ad or on the site or anywhere, but just in the pictures. I mean, because you're wearing the Boston Scally top or whatever, it's clear like this is part of the brand. You know what I mean?
So
But you can see it. Like you can't afford to miss a day. It'll mess up the logo if I look at my hat and see you, and then I look online and see your
I'll
beer
have to
belly.
I'll have to make a new one. Yeah. So interesting tidbit. I used to have. You might be able to find some old pictures if you Google long enough. But I used to have a fitness website, and I had been published in coincidentally enough in Muscle and Fitness, and on the cover for the one time I got published in Muscle and Fitness was The Rock and Mark Wahlberg were on there for Pain and Gain, and I'll send you I'll email you over the snippet of the article that I put in there. But I wrote for a bunch of different blogs for a while, and I love fitness, and that was a big part of my life, and I had a blog on the side just to keep that kind of interest going. But yeah, small interesting tidbit. I was published in Muscle and Fitness.
No, dude. Look, I keep my thing secret too. People Google, they'll find it, but I never talk about it. But when I got to be 45, I'm 52 now, and in my late 40s, I decided to do a contest, and I've been competing in
Yeah.
men's physique. And but I like go to nationals and all that in Pittsburgh and I do masters division. I can't compete with a 25-year-old kid, but it's like a huge part because for me, man, what it is I love. Okay, here's what it sounds ridiculous, but here's what I love. I love doing stuff that other people can't do. Like if it's really really difficult and a small percentage, like somebody said, man, you should do a marathon. Hell no, there's thousands of people that do those. I want to do some shit that hardly anybody can stick to, and the discipline is ridiculous. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, and I think no matter what it is, I think everybody should find one thing that challenges the hell out of you, man. Whether it's bodybuilding, working out, whether it's starting a company or whether it's, something new. Find something that challenges you, find something that makes you uncomfortable, and, and try to excel at it, right? And not necessarily saying do things that you stink at, right? I'm a big advocate of, be the best at the things you're best at, but, find something that you're uncomfortable doing and go do it, man. Go face
Yeah.
the fear and go kill it.
That's what it's about, man. It's but this is the thing about kids today is that the seeking of comfort is so easy because all the opportunity and availability they have for that, rather than if you seek out comfort, that's what leads ultimately to discomfort. But if you seek out the discomfort right now, that is what ultimately leads to comfort.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree with you more. I love that.
Hey man, thank you so much for today, dude. I love what you got going on, and I'm just so proud of who you've become and all the influences you had in your life, in your house, with your meathead brothers and friends, and your amazing teachers you've had in your fam, and the whole community up there, and to see how all that came together in these products that you're putting out there, and the way you're doing it is just freaking awesome.
Thank you, man. And hey, thank you for doing what you do too, man. Inspiring youth and teachers all around the country. Education is such an important aspect. And you guys are the influences out there and the mentors that, are gonna help kids be able to believe in what they're doing. And, I think now more than ever is a time where kids in school, it's not easy being a kid in school right now. I think it's a lot more difficult even from than when I was a kid in school. And I think right now is a time where teachers and educators are more influential than athletes and superstars that are out there. I really do.
Yeah. All right, brother. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate you, man. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your day and weekend. Fam time. Go kill it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.